Hello and welcome to the Paper 2 support for the final question, which is question 5, the 16 marker. This is the one that includes the 3 marks for SPAG as well. Okay, so the question for the 2015 paper says, how far do you agree with this statement? And your job is to say how far you agree and how far you disagree. The statement says, the national government made important improvements in public health between 1800 and 1914. So it's talking about Parliament. And the governments at the time, from 1800 to 1914, made improvements, and they were important. So let's have a look at some own knowledge. First bit of own knowledge, 1842, Edwin Chadwick's report. Again, there are lots of different bits of own knowledge that you might have been taught, or your teachers will have taught you. These are just some basics that really you could use to say that there have been improvements. The first Public Health Act of 1848. This one was not compulsory, we know, until the Second Public Health Act of 1875 forced local councils to do some of the bills that were being passed. 1858, you have the Great Stinker. Joseph Bazalgette comes up with a sewerage system that is then built in the following years. The Second Public Health Act comes out in 1875, as previously mentioned. Slum clearances of the late 19th century, 1890s, and the liberal reforms of 1906 to 1914. Really kind of bring you right up to date. So there are 6 points there that we've just pulled out straight away from our own knowledge. It could be you could talk about more. The 1911 liberal reform I particularly wanted to talk about was the National Insurance Act, which is one of the sources in the paper. And then as you can see below, what I've done is separated out the sources that support. So I start planning this question, and I would strongly suggest that you plan this question before you answer it. Think of the own knowledge you want to get out there, and that's a good chunk of marks to use own knowledge. And then I'd think about one side of the argument, the other side of the argument, and then a conclusion. I'm going to look through those 5 sources from the pack, from the booklet, and work out which ones support what I'm trying to say and which ones don't support. So usually it's a 3-2 split. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave those sources and own knowledge into an answer, which I'll show you on the next slide. Okay, so here's the example. This is obviously smaller than a real answer would look like. What I've tried to do here is give you an introduction just here. I've given you a small conclusion, and then these are my paragraphs. Here's the for bit, and then here's the against bit. Okay, let's have a look. So I kick off with my opening sentence, and the opening sentence should address that question and give an opinion as well. So the national government found it difficult to improve public health in 1800, as very little was known about the causes of disease until the discovery of germs in 1861. Here is where I've used some own knowledge. I've also said that they found it difficult to improve public health. And I've mentioned that it's because of the lack of understanding of the cause of disease. I've then gone on to say it was also the work of individuals like John Snow and Edwin Chadwick who helped make improvements. Although slow to begin with, they would soon make greater improvements to public health between 1800 and 1914. That's the date range, and I've given a suggestion there. Therefore, I agree with the statement fully, coming back to it. What I would possibly add in here might be a bit on factors. What factors will I address? Factors that either support the idea that public health was improved by the government or it wasn't. Think like individuals. These are your big factors. Things like knowledge and understanding, so science and technology possibly in here. And so you could mention that. Let's delve straight in though and have a look at the first paragraph. It starts off nicely with firstly, which is making my point, P for point. We can see public health was important. Now I've referenced the sources, and I've done that in combination. So again, I'm going to write combo there, because that shows that sources A and B have been combined. So in sources A and B, we can see that the government are trying to investigate the causes of illness. Typo here, so let's alter that look. Causes rather than courses of illness, and also force local councils to act. Now, the reason why I'm kind of putting this in here to show you is because when you reread your work, you will spot these things, and that's the whole point of this mark. Spelling, punctuation and grammar is worth 3 marks. By rereading your work, you notice obvious spelling mistakes like that, and that's where you can make sure that you get your full marks rather than just getting a 2 or a 1. Okay. So coming back, however, I've shown a bit of counterbalance in the first point. The first Public Health Act shows how little progress was being made. and then I'd carry on, so on and so forth. Give another example, and explain why the first Public Health Act was so bad. That's where I can draw upon source B, which was the pig one, and talk about all those points that you've already made. And that's sometimes one of the better reasons for doing this in a particular order, going question 1 all the way down. Here's my opposite argument. On the other hand, little was being done. Reference to source D. So I've already mentioned 3 sources so far. Shows the appalling slum conditions, which indicates there's an explanation. It would take the First World War to really start to make a difference. Here I then talk about why the First World War made a difference and so on. In conclusion, it is clear the national government did put in place measures to improve health. Another typo there, look. The most important reason why this was achieved was because of individuals pushing for measures. So that's my main factor, or that's my main answer I've come back to. Yes, it's small, but it's got what I'm after. So I've got my intro, my conclusion, my for, my against, my sources, my explanation. This is what we're after. This is the true element of the GCSE paper in fruition. 16 marks plus 3 spag. I hope that's helpful. Good luck.